Behind every success story, there is a long line of triumphs and defeats that remain hidden from others. These stories get condensed into journeys that minimize the struggle and wrap up with a happy ending. But we know that's not how life works. That's where From the Ashes with Mark Azoulay comes in. On today's show, you'll hear honest conversations about the challenges that Mark's guest faced and how they overcame adversity. Now, here is your host, Mark Azoulay.
Welcome back to From the Ashes. I'm your host, Mark Azoulay, and I'm sitting here with Duke Rumely, who is the founder of Sober AF Entertainment. Duke, I'm so happy to have you on the show. We were just chatting. We lost a little bit of touch during the pandemic, so I'm excited to kind of get to catch up with you, see what's going on with you and Sober AF, and just share this story because your organization, and I'll let you, explain the kind of thrust of it, is incredible. It's something that I wish I had when I was going through early sobriety. It's something I wish I had now in some cases. I think connecting sober people is so critical because it is the community that really heals people. So, Duke, welcome to the show.
What's up, my brother? Mark, it is so good to see you. I've missed you. Mark was a huge supporter of us right out of the gate in our early stages, and I just so appreciated you believing in kind of this mission and getting it, just understanding how this is a missing part that's out there, and how do we help kids find a sober wingman or sober wing woman and go out and get after life and go to the music festivals and stuff. So Mark is all about that sober fun. So I'm super excited to be on your podcast, buddy.
Thank you. Yeah, it's so cool. It's back when the meetings were at the cigar lounge.
Right.
That was the Sober AF headquarters for a while there.
Yes. So some things haven't changed, but yeah, we haven't had any board meetings there because we're all on Zoom now.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, so let's dig right in, right? In the first segment, we like to talk about, the personal story. So can you share a little bit about your recovery journey and then what eventually inspired you to start Sober
Sure.
AF?
So I am a guy who at a really young age, probably around 16 or 17 years old, had a really intense experience with alcohol. And what happened was my brain got rewired from this really tense experience. And it was really kind of my driver. It was all I really kind of wanted to do or think about. And everything would be better if we were drinking while we did this. And then kind of fast forward, my life started getting more and more out of control. I got a DUI at 18. I was at the University of Arizona and got arrested in Nogales, Mexico. Mom had to fly down and bail me out at 20. Basically a week later, I'm coming out of a blackout and I'm smoking weed on an airplane, thinking I'm on a Greyhound bus. And so there was definitely this
Wait, you just lit up on an airplane?
So it's so much better than that.
Yeah.
So I came out of a blackout. I don't know if this ever happens to anyone,
Yeah.
but suddenly all the adrenaline kicks in and you're not quite sober, but you're sober enough to realize what is going on. And I'm in this small bathroom thinking it's a Greyhound bus. And I've got this big Bob Marley joint fired up and smoke alarms are going off. And I'm looking around where am I? What's going on? And I remember poking my head out the door thinking, did anyone on this Greyhound bus hear this sound? And it turned out it was a 737 airplane. And everyone on the plane was staring at me. Everyone wanted to know why alarms are going off on this airplane. And why does it suddenly smell of smoke? And I was more shocked than anyone on that airplane. What is going on? How does this happen? So that was kind of an example of kind of the insanity going on in my life.
Where I got to ask so many questions. Where was the plane
Sure.
going? So while blackout, you bought a ticket, went through security, boarded the plane.
So the story is a week after Mom bails me out of jail in Mexico. So I'm in Mexico. Mom's flies down. 8 days later, I finally get released. And this was for a misunderstanding about some counterfeit money. And She says, straighten up, fly straight. I agree. A week later, there's a party in San Diego, and I'm going to school at the University of Tucson. So I can't go. I got a week of school to catch up on. I just missed, 6 school days in a row. Plus, I so much to catch up on. But then when I saw the keg get rolled onto this RV, this magical thing happened in my brain, which is alcoholism, which is your mind changes its own mind. Mm-hmm. So I went from like, I can't go to I have to go. This is a once in a lifetime experience. Go to San Diego, start drinking. When I have one drink, I get usually thirstier. And usually when a lot of people have 2 or 3 drinks, they catch that buzz. They know it's time to stop. That's normal drinking. I catch those 2 or 3 drinks, catch that buzz, and I have this urge to take it to the next level. Mm-hmm. So I want to go from first gear to second gear. And so this is what happened in San Diego. And basically, we missed the RV going home Sunday morning. So I'm stuck in San Diego with a different fraternity brother. And long story short, we decide we're going to take a Greyhound bus home Monday morning. And we go out drinking that night, and something changed in the middle of the night. For some reason, we could get, a Southwest cheap flight. All I know is the plans changed mid-blackout, and somehow my brain didn't quite comprehend the fact that we were on an airplane versus a Greyhound bus. And I was snapped to, and, this is a week after my parents had to bail me out of jail one time. I'm sure they weren't coming to San Diego. So, I kind of stumbled out, and the flight attendant had one of the pilots come down and talk to me. So I had a pilot talking to me, and I couldn't understand what he was saying. It was that fluent drunkenese. Mm-hmm. And it was the parents from Snoopy's, and you're so drunk, someone sounds like this. Wah, 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 which isn't good if it's the authority, right? So I just kept saying it won't happen again. So that's how I drank. I planned on not drinking. My mind changed its own mind. Mm-hmm. I took a drink, and bad things typically happened in a blackout. And my life was getting progressively worse as I was flunking out of college.
Yeah. So like really intense experience early on in your life. When did you get into recovery? Or go ahead with the story.
But to your point, just, I started getting dragged to a couple AA meetings a year at age 17. So I'm very lucky to have parents who were very proactive in my sobriety and in my world, and realizing there was a problem. And I would promise the world, and then I would just try to figure out, how do I drink so the bad stuff doesn't happen? And that's what I was looking for, and I could never find that. So I ended up being taken to treatment May of '89. And there was a sober support group inside the Grateful Dead that I had seen over the previous 4 years. So I'd seen about 15 Grateful Dead shows up to that point. And I think there was a little seed planted in the back of my mind that you can get sober and still see the dead. Which was just enough to make the idea of getting sober tolerable. So, I was not looking for any long-term sobriety. It was not going to be a solution. I wanted the DUIs to stop. That was my number one goal, right? And how do I stop being the knucklehead of the family, right? I was the black sheep of my family. I'm the oldest of 5 kids, and once I kind of got a little recognition or appreciation for early sobriety, I think that was kind of important. But, for probably a year, every liquor store I drove by, my head would turn, and every bar I'd go by, my head would turn. Just like it was, geo-mapping this area just in case I decide I'm going to drink or do drugs again. Where am I going to get the drugs, and where am I going to meet the ladies? And my brain was still thinking that was a possible solution.
Yeah. So what kept you strong during that? Like, how did you maintain?
A part of it was I was still going to Grateful Dead shows with high school buddies. And if I could, it was important that I wasn't like shunned from a community. I wasn't stuck home. The reality is 12-step meetings, loving and supportive parents. I moved at like 3 or 4 months sober to go to a new college in Louisville, Kentucky. So I had a new environment. There was a girl who was sober at my college who was taking me to meetings, kind of introducing me around. I think there was a lot of change on the front side of this that helped. There was a thing called Young People in AA, and they were doing like dances, trying to raise money for some conference. And it was definitely, I think, important to make some friends early on in my early sobriety, that made, this idea of, what are you going to do on a Friday and Saturday night? And there was still a part of me that was this rebel that I still, would try to see as many Grateful Dead shows as possible. So, I would be able to smoke Marlboro Reds and drink Mountain Dews with buddies, and go see 3 Dead shows in a row someplace, and then come back and be student kid for 28 days out of the month and go to 12-step meetings. But I needed that release, that pressure out of the balloon to still kind of be a little defiant. And that was, I think, kind of my, I'm happy to be the good guy as long as I get to be the bad guy every once in a while. And bad guy is probably the wrong term, but just, I wanted to see humanity. I wanted to see, 60,000 people having a good time shaking their butts together. And the fact that I didn't have to give that up, I think, was really important to my early sobriety.
Yeah. We have similar stories, is that I didn't want to go up the music festival scene. I didn't want to go up the rave scene. It was very critical for me because what I was sold, and it sounds like you were sold something similar in the beginning, is that sobriety is boring, right? You just sit at home and cry about your past, which was something I did not want to sign up for, right? I was having a lot of fun when the drugs and alcohol were working. They were working well, I was having a ton of fun. And it sounds like you were in a similar boat.
Yeah. Have you heard of cocaine?
Yeah.
So it is really, really fun until you wake up and you have ATM receipts in your pocket. You don't remember what happened, but you got a giant booger in your nose, and you're like, "Oh no, what happened?" So I am with you. Like early sobriety, if it wasn't fun, I was 51% sober anyways. I was kind of barely hanging on anyway, so I needed kind of that hope that this really could be a fun way not to blow up my life.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, so I'm curious what the next steps are, right? Because when I first met you, you weren't doing sober AF. You were like a business development person for a local rehab out here.
Right.
Was that always? Did you go straight into the recovery industry, or did you have was that a career change? Did you have a job before that?
So I got sober in '89, was still in college, graduated in '91, and started working on Wall Street. So
I didn't know that.
I had a 10 plus year career being a NASDAQ market maker. So I set the price for NASDAQ stocks for about 10 years, from 91 through '01. And then '01 through '08, I was a financial advisor for Smith Barney. So had about a 20-year kind of Wall Street career, raising kids, still going to concerts, but really, was kind of the normal guy who recovery was a small part of my life, and there was meetings, there was buddies and meetings, but there was family, there was work, and still having fun going to some concerts. Still active in the 12 steps, probably going to like 3 meetings a week, or 2 or 3 meetings a week. But, I think kind of that your midlife, if you're in recovery, you put money in the bank by going to some meetings, and then you got to spend it when you got kids, and you're not able to go as many meetings typically.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. How did that work? Because my assumption about the Wall Street culture is that that's a pretty alcohol heavy culture as well. Especially in like
NASDAQ
90s, right?
NASDAQ was kind of the Wild Wild West.
Yeah.
And it definitely was a little different, where you had every personality mix in the in the world. And maybe kind of having like this little edge to me that I was, still going to Grateful Dead concerts. I think I was able to kind of put things in different departments. So there was the work, community. I think that the first 10 years of my sobriety, was not really kids. So it was kind of trading NASDAQ stocks, making a lot of money, and but still staying humble through 12-step meetings, and helped start like the Hollywood Young People's meeting in Fort Lauderdale, actually Hollywood, Florida. And there's just kind of this bizarre, you'd trade NASDAQ stocks during the day wearing a coat and tie, or at least a shirt and tie, and then kind of take that off and then go to a meeting in a t-shirt and then go play hoops afterwards with your buddies. Was kind of this, did I have to, well, I guess I didn't quite fall into the allure of kind of that South Beach mentality that you can see in Wall Street. Or at least when I was trading NASDAQ stocks, we were in South Florida. So, and just, I was able to find contentment and happiness in my community in the 12 steps.
That's great. Yeah. So 12 steps sounds like really an anchor that kept you through all of that. And there's something there too about like I don't know how to say it in a positive way. It's like leading a double life, but leading a double life for good, right? Like not like still having the Grateful Dead life, still having, the recovery room life, but like I say, putting on that suit and tie and just being kind of like the corporate finance guy during the day.
Like, oops, sorry. No, now it's time to take this off. And, really, I mean, there's definitely some true humility with it. And it's also like, not buying the BS that money and kind of drugs is the end all be all, man. It turned on me. So I'm happy to say I'm, was able to get the goodness and then leave it at 5:00 in the afternoon.
That's great. So we're going to move to our first commercial break. When we come back, I want to hear more about, getting into recovery industry, about founding Sober AF, some of the, vision and mission behind it, right? What you're out there doing, and kind of catch up on where it's been in the past couple of years. So if you're listening, thanks so much for tuning in. We'll catch you on the other side of the commercial break with more details and more Duke's story.
Become our friend on Facebook. Post your thoughts about our shows and network on our timeline. Visit facebook.com/Voice America.
In Mark's work with high performers and business owners, it is becoming increasingly clear to him that their biggest obstacle to success is themselves. They are experts in their field, but are dragged down by their anxiety, poor time management, inability to focus, or self-sabotage. His role is to help you overcome these emotional and organizational issues so that you can truly excel in your business and your personal life. One of the most common hurdles that he sees is perfectionism, a crippling anxiety around performance. It's a fear of not being good enough, being publicly embarrassed, or of disappointing others. These fears paralyze brilliant people and bring them to their knees. This course will help you to break free from this mental prison and have more agency in your world. In this online course, we will break down the prison of perfectionism so that you can break out of it. For more information and to sign up, visit mark-azulay.teachable.com. That's Mark, MARC-Azulay, AZOULAY.teachable.com.
Where can you listen to some of the world's top life coaches ready to dish out success tips and entrepreneurial guidance? The Voice America Empowerment Channel will do just that. Whether it's personal growth, building a better business, or inspirational life stories, make it a daily habit to tune into our programs. From weight loss and personal branding to law of attraction and increased happiness, you'll find it every day at VoiceAmericaEmpowerment.com. The Voice America Empowerment Channel. It's your world. Motivate, change, succeed.
Our thoughts and feelings not only affect our own lives, but the lives of everyone around us. Find new meanings of love, authentic expressions, and better connections with the people in your life. Tune in to Love Light with Dr. Jean Marie Farish. This program will feature guests and discuss ideas that will bring a better life to you. When you find this perspective on love, it will change everything. Listen live every Friday at 12 noon Eastern Time and 9 a.m. Pacific Time on the Voice America Empowerment Channel.
It's your world. Motivate, change, succeed. VoiceAmericaEmpowerment.com.
You are listening to From the Ashes with Mark Azoulay. To reach the show today, please call 1-888-346-9141. That's 1-888-346-9141. Or send an email to podcast@mark-azoulay.com. Now, back to From the Ashes.
Welcome back. I'm sitting here with Duke Rumely, the founder of Sober AF Entertainment. And Duke, let's just pick up the story where we left off, right? So you were working as like a, trader, financial market maker, all this stuff down in Florida. What happened next? Did you move to the recovery industry then, or was there a bridge point?
I was a financial advisor during the crash of 2008.
Oh, shit.
And 2009. And I just remember I was put on probation twice for having too much money in cash of clients. Mm-hmm. And I mean, the market was down 40%. And, I kept getting in trouble for not, shorting the market or not, having this money in play. So I just realized that I was no longer feel safe being on the kind of the same page with my clients and my employer. Mm-hmm. So I would say, I kind of knew it was time for a little bit of a change. And at the time I was looking at either being an interventionist or working in hospice, kind of that transition from life to death. And I just been reading a lot of books about what people feel when they maybe cross over and then come back. And local treatment center was hiring interventionists at the time. And I went in there and applied and worked for a nonprofit called Harmony Foundation as a interventionist / marketer for a couple of years. And then after 2 years, they said, hey, we're going to ask you to just do the marketing full time, not the intervention thing anymore. So then I was doing the marketing for this drug and alcohol treatment center for a total of 6 years. And I think that's when you and I met. I went to work for a couple other for-profit treatment centers in the Denver area. And then my kids started having some real issues. My son at 16, his best friend OD'd on a weed brownie and ended up in a ambulance and hospital. And at the same time, my daughter was 20, and she was at Red Rocks, texted me she needed to take an Uber home. And she wouldn't tell me why, but all of her friends run ecstasy is really the bottom line. And just kind of had this thought like, hey, what are you going to do? Your kid's dead in 6 months. And there was also a part of me who at the time, I think was 29 years sober, knew like treatment is awesome for 30 or 45 days, but your like recovery battery goes down. And, right around that 6 month mark is really dangerous, and 9 months. It just kind of takes a year of consistently, I think, staying sober for your brain to kind of bounce back and not have this. You kind of get the ability for a short period of time to say, no, that's a bad idea. If that brain does change its mind and says it's a good idea to drink. So, kind of had this thought in the back of my mind, like, hey, we should have some type of kind of sober fun, much like what the Wharf Rats did at the Grateful Dead. So we did Base Nectar was our very first show, June 1st, 2018. I think we did Big Head Todd and the Monsters at Red Rocks. And then we did a Rockies game. And we sold about 120 tickets in like 8 days for a sober section for the Rockies. And that's when I realized, hey, you know what? There's an actual want for this crazy idea. And, we started doing different music festivals and different concerts and trying to figure out what the want and the need looks like. We've done over the last 4 years, 115 events. We've had over 6,000 people come to our events. We went virtual during COVID and hosted some music festivals. And we had a total of 43,000 people watch virtually our music festivals. So at the beginning of COVID, people wanted to watch music on their phone. So we were really early adapters to that. So that was really interesting and fun. And we had no idea what we were doing. But we pulled it off. But now, we're back to being in person. And are you sitting down, Mark? You ready for this craziness?
I'm ready. What you got?
So tomorrow, the Colorado Rockies gave us 2,000 tickets for a sober section. So tomorrow night, we're hosting a sober support tailgate, and we'll have a giant party, and then we're going to have 2,000 people be sober at a baseball game.
That's really cool.
Is that insane?
Really
2,000?
Cool. Yeah, that's really cool.
Yes.
Yeah.
That'll be our largest event by 2x. So super, super excited about tomorrow night being kind of this big coming out party for us. So, we know it's needed. More importantly, what does it look like, right? How do we show people how to have fun sober, right? You don't have to have a sobriety pledge. You don't have to have some long-term sober commitment. If you're just, curious what it's like to take a night off, if you feel nauseous if you drink too much and you don't want a healthier lifestyle and you want to join us, we have plenty of space. It's a big tent. So we're really excited about this tailgate we're doing tomorrow. We'll have the owner of the Rockies speak at it. We're going to have Senator Kevin Priola speak at it. We're going to have these things called recovery peer specialists speak at it. So try to make it a little educational, and then have 2,000 people sitting together in like 5 sections, all wearing yellow hats. So really pumped about what tomorrow's going to look like. And it'll be our 116th event in the last 4 years.
That's pretty impressive. I mean, 116 events during COVID, right? During the
nuts.
area of COVID is like pretty incredible, actually, to be able to do that many. And it's, congratulations. Like, that's a really big thing. It sounds like it'll really draw a lot of attention too, right? Just have everybody be together.
So we're super excited. To your point, the Rockies are going to make a video of it. We're blown away that this many people are really looking to have some sober fun and feel comfortable at a Rockies game. It's called Coors Field, so there's going to be some beer around us. But we also get it. Like, we're not anti-alcohol. We are pro sober fun. So if you want to kind of test that out and kind of see what it feels like, we got a group of people doing it. And we'll walk you through it. And it is a little awkward the first couple times you do it. So we definitely understand that. So we try to make it really fun, especially if you're kind of new to the group. How do we make this kind of a sacred space for you to make a buddy? So we really recommend people kind of talk to everyone around them and try to make a new friend and find out what they're into. And if you got a sober buddy who wants to go to an Avalanche game, or sober buddy who wants to go to a music festival, so we're pumped about that. Actually, tonight we're doing a sober section and a sober tailgate for Dead and Company up in Boulder. So Dead and Company gave 40 tickets to the collegiate recovery group up in Boulder, and they asked us to throw the sober tailgate. Next Thursday, Friday, Saturday, we're back at Country Jam, which is a 3-day music festival that we're really excited about. So we'll be doing sober camping for the first time there. So if you go to Country Jam's website, it says, click here for sober camping. Like, how cool is that?
That's cool. I mean, that makes it legit, right? I mean, that's like some really great integration. You're just like everywhere. I mean, how many, do you just travel all the time? What's your life look like right now? Like, are you at every event, or are you just orchestrating at this point?
So of the 115 events that we've had, I've missed 2.
Okay, nice.
So I really enjoy getting after it, and I'm kind of an empty nester and really trying to, make sure it comes off well. We have 2 other employees, but really, yeah, we definitely need more volunteers. And there is a great need for this, but we need help with like social media. There is a DJ who passed away, Brian Rescue Hen, a couple of weeks ago, and we're hosting his memorial page on our website. So we're doing some really cool web development as far as a memorial for Brian, and we'll be playing his music at the music or at our tailgate tomorrow. But you can check him out on SoundCloud. So I would say, as the executive director of this, we're missing kind of the corporate sponsorship. We're missing the celebrity sponsorship. We think we're close. We just got Coca-Cola to donate 2,000 drinks for our event tomorrow night. We've had different people, celebrities join us. We had a woman in long-term recovery sing the national anthem for the Rockies, who is a Grammy-nominated singer named Hillary Roberts. But I'm just thinking of all the entrepreneurs who are on this podcast. It is a newer nonprofit. It is a brand new service. I always thought somebody's doing this someplace else already. Certain music festivals will have a recovery tent. Certain live bands have a recovery tent. Certain universities might have a sober tailgate, but there's nobody doing all of that combined. And our nonprofit is the kind of world's leader in recovery support at sports and music events. And really, ideally, what we're trying to do is teach people how to host their own. So we want to do 40 events a year and have the community do 400 events a year. And what I've learned is we give people the permission to host a recovery support event.
Yeah.
So that was missing. Just giving people permission. We hosted a recovery ski-a-thon about 10 years ago, and then that turned into a thing, and then we turned it over to the Collegiate Recovery Association. So sometimes that's all it is. We'll get a phone call from we got a phone call from Holy Cross and Harvard for the football game last fall, and we sent them T-shirts and talked to them how to do it. And they had an alumni walk by, saw what was going on, learned more, and then just wrote a check so they could do a sober tailgate for every home game. So that's kind of the goal, is really how do we outreach this so other people host their own, and then we're kind of the landing page that they can find out about it.
Yeah, I think it's fantastic. So I want to bring you back to talking about recovery for a moment, because
Sure.
you talked about that early recovery stage, and I think it's so critical, right? The shift of moving from just getting sober to making a life that you love, right? And having a life that is fun, that is engaging, that has meaningful relationships. Can you say more about what that was like for you?
Sure.
Yeah.
And to your point, recovery really for me is pretty binary, meaning I either don't drink, and if I drink, it hits the newspapers. It is just like,
You go hard.
I can't drink a little. I just burn the whole house down.
Yeah.
So it's really important to kind of stay sober on that point. So I think just was really fortunate to make a couple friends in early recovery who are really fun. And how do you kind of integrate this new learning how to live without alcohol, which was such a huge buffer that made everything less awkward. And, how do you kind of learn those life skills, especially at 21? Like, how do you walk into a room and not know anybody and not completely freeze up and leave? To your point, I think just making that buddy and, your 12-step community or your sober buddy, for me, was more important than like a sponsor. Just I had somebody I could go to and kind of talk real stuff to. And part of it is 21. I didn't know how to talk real stuff, right? It was all so new. How do you talk about relationships? How do you talk to girls? I didn't know how to tie a tie. There was just so much new stuff that was kind of being thrown at me in kind of that early sobriety. And how do you go back out with old friends and just drink a Diet Coke or something, or have a Coke and still be a big part of life. It wasn't about hiding in the basement of a church. I think that works for a lot of people, but I think for me, I needed that, but then I needed to go see live music and needed to go out and experience life. I'd experienced life. I knew what it would look like, and I enjoyed it, but learned, kind of that skill set. How do you do that sober?
Yeah, I think that's really critical. And we're going to move into our next commercial break coming up here soon. But when we come back, I want to hear more of what you would say to somebody who wants to experiment with sobriety, right? Who does want to learn those social skills, because I think you're absolutely right? People drink and do drugs because it does lubricate everything. It does make things easier. But in that, this was true in my experience, it made me worse, right? Like I got kind of the shortcut. I kind of cheated on some of those social skills, and then I had to go back and learn them. And because I was insecure, I would end up drinking or drugging more.
Totally agree. Like that was my shortcut ended up not being a shortcut, but I over missed the mark. I just wanted a couple drinks to kind of cut the edge off so I could schmooze folks and talk to girls. And next thing you know, I'm waking up and it's the next day, and
and you're on an airplane heading towards.
Yes, right. Being told all the stories that I did once again.
Yeah.
Right.
All right, cool. So we'll move to our commercial break here. For those listeners, thank you so much for tuning in. And we're on the other side. We're going to hear more about what you might be able to do, take some real action if you're sober curious. So
yes,
hang in there, and we'll see you on the other side of the commercials.
Follow us on Twitter at VoiceAmericaTRN. Get the lowdown on guests, new shows, and your favorites. That's VoiceAmericaTRN.
In Mark's work with high performers and business owners, it is becoming increasingly clear to him that their biggest obstacle to success is themselves. They are experts in their field, but are dragged down by their anxiety, poor time management, inability to focus, or self-sabotage. His role is to help you overcome these emotional and organizational issues so that you can truly excel in your business and your personal life. One of the most common hurdles that he sees is perfectionism, a crippling anxiety around performance. It's a fear of not being good enough, being publicly embarrassed, or of disappointing others. These fears paralyze brilliant people and bring them to their knees. This course will help you to break free from this mental prison and have more agency in your world. In this online course, we will break down the prison of perfectionism so that you can break out of it. For more information and to sign up, visit mark-azulay.teachable.com. That's Mark, MARC-azulay, AZOULAY.teachable.com.
Voice America programs are now available on your favorite connected device, including Amazon, Alexa, and Google Home. Through streams with Apple Podcasts, TuneIn, and iHeartRadio, listening to your favorite show is as easy as saying the show name followed by the word podcast.
Hey, Alexa, play Finding Your Frequency podcast.
If that doesn't work, try adding on TuneIn or on iHeartRadio or on Apple Podcasts.
Are you ready to move to your next level? Listen for Empowering Women, Transforming Lives with host Rebecca Hall-Greider. Each show will focus on a central topic with discussion, guests, and your questions being featured. Our show is perfect for women who feel a call in their heart to step out in a bigger, more powerful way in their life and just need some encouragement, inspiration, and practical steps to support them on their journey.
Empowering Women, Transforming Lives can be heard live every Thursday at 10 a.m. Pacific Time, 1 p.m. Eastern Time on the Voice America Empowerment Channel, with a replay of the show Sunday at 1 p.m. Pacific Time and 4 p.m. Eastern on the Voice America Variety Channel.
You are listening to From the Ashes with Mark Azoulay. To reach the show today, please call 1-888-346-9141. That's 1-888-346-9141. Or send an email to podcast@mark-azoulay.com. Now, back to From the Ashes.
Welcome back. In our final segment, we talked directly to listeners. So, Duke, I'm curious if there is somebody, maybe they're a young person, maybe there's someone that's getting sober later in life that wants to party sober, right? They don't have access to Safe right now. What do you recommend that they do? How do they take that plunge?
It's a great question, right? Because we're kind of this new, unique model. So we would say find some like-minded people and contact us. We will help you use our nonprofit status if you wanted to host your own like event at a music festival or at a concert. We're constantly getting contacted by different venues to see if we can set up a sober support tent for them. The New York Mets contacted us for August 31st, which is International Overdose Awareness Day. So we're going to have a 250-person sober section, sober tailgate inside City Park in New York City. And we're going to need volunteers for that. The Dillon Amphitheater up in Dillon, Colorado, we're trading emails back and forth with them. They want us to do 3 events this summer. So we're going to need help kind of building that army of volunteers. But, there's a lot of different recovery support out there right now. There's a group called the Phoenix. They do sober connection through working out or like mountain bike rides, and they're national. So I think you can just Google kind of recovery support in your area and see what different stuff comes up. A lot of the larger music.
I think we lost Duke for a moment there with some technical difficulties. But I will say, for someone that is looking to kind of start, there's a lot of resources out there. But I think the main thing there is finding a friend, finding a buddy, hopefully someone that is also sober, but maybe somebody who, is interested in being supportive of you, and trying to go out and live your life, right? I mean, I guess it's so obvious. It was so critical to me to realize that recovery doesn't have to look like, kind of what Duke was saying of, living in the basement and just, crying about your past, or being in a place where you feel like you're a victim to the world, or feeling like you're outcast, or that you don't fit in. There's so much out there. And a big part of my recovery journey was about choosing life and choosing to live. So something that I did, one of many things, was go back into old past hobbies and figure out, hey, like, what was I into when I was sober, which for me was when I was a kid, what are some things that I enjoyed? For me, it was like nerdy stuff, Dungeons and Dragons, Warhammer, things like that, Marvel comics, and dig that stuff back out and be like, hey, is there something for me here now? And in some cases there was, some cases there wasn't, some things, you kind of leave behind in childhood, but figuring out ways to just enjoy sober life. One of the biggest things that came through in my therapy when I was going through early recovery was this realization that I didn't know what it was like to be sober. For me, it wasn't alcohol as much. It was more marijuana. I was just high all the time, literally all the time, to the point where that was normal for me, right? The high state of mind was normal for me. And when I was sober, it felt like I was on drugs. And I'll say a little bit more about that. What that meant was, I started having like feelings that I didn't have when I was high, like emotions, right? I started having memories and thinking back about stuff from my past that was painful, right? That the weed kind of suppressed and kind of put away. I started like, being more aware of my own awkwardness and my own insecurities, which again, I was medicating with marijuana, and it felt uncomfortable and it felt altered. And that was a very scary moment for me because I really came to the realization that I live so much in an altered state that I've forgotten what reality was. And a big part of my work was getting in touch with really reality as it was. For me, that started with a mindfulness practice. It started with getting into Buddhism, getting into meditation. I learned from a Zen monk in Pittsburgh. That was my first kind of Buddhist teacher. And I love the Zen style because really the whole idea there is just like, shut up and sit down. Don't freak out. Don't kind of overstimulate yourself. Get used to finding beauty in the mundane. And that was something that I really had to learn. First by meditating at the Allegheny Zen Monastery. Then I also get a lot of it out in nature, of being able to notice the natural beauty and let the world touch me. Because when I was using drugs and alcohol, which I imagine some of our listeners are in that place, there was just a bubble around me. Like I wasn't in the reality of my life, for good or for bad, right? I mean, the good part is I wasn't feeling some of those painful feelings, and the bad part is that I wasn't present. And especially with marijuana, I found that for me, weed, the way I said it to my therapist, and I still believe it, it really kept me small. Which I know is not the effect for everybody, but for me, it really did keep me small. And what that meant, practically was that, when I was high, I wouldn't talk to girls. I wouldn't move the relationship of my life forward. I wouldn't, pick up the phone if somebody called. I missed appointments, or I missed, showed up late to work. I wasn't really able to fully function in my life. I would eat poorly and gain a bunch of weight, right? And then feel bad about that. It was just this constant cycle of a drug that kept me insulated, right? Kept me safe. It kept me in this safe bubble of, smoking weed, eating pizza, and playing video games, it's not even a stereotype. That's literally what I did. And in those moments, I loved it, but it kept me small and away from basically the rest of my life and from growing. And I don't know. I mean, for me, weed it was so sneaky because it felt like it was helping me. It felt like it was healing me. It felt like it was letting me get in touch with my creative side, get in touch with my emotions to really, I thought it was kind of a spiritual vehicle for a while. But when I pulled the lens back, I was like, whoa, this is really keeping me out of my life. So I do love, what Duke is doing out there with Sober AF Entertainment. I love the idea of living a sober life fully with your eyes open. I mentioned it before that a big part of sobriety is creating a life that is worth living, right? Choosing life. I think that's also true. Maybe you don't struggle with substance abuse. I think it's also true with addiction. I think it's also true with, addiction to substance use. What I was meant to say was depression, anxiety, even trauma, right? These mental illnesses keep us away from the life we want to live. So that was a little non sequitur. Duke is going to be joining us right back in here in a moment. I'm going to let him into the podcast right now.
Hey, buddy.
So you're back. I did a little monologue while
awesome.
while we were going. But you were talking a little bit about, how a young person or somebody who wants to experiment sobriety would get started. You shared a little bit about, resources to connect with, but I'm also curious about just kind of, so we talked about at the beginning of the podcast, social skills or how to find a friend or how to talk to somebody in a room or feel confident, because I was just telling the listeners in my story, that was so much of my issue is I was just a shy, overweight, shut down kid that had no confidence. And, alcohol and drugs gave me that false sense.
Right. So I think it's, what do you love, and see if you can do whatever you still love sober. You can kind of blame Sober October, or I'm taking a month off, or, sometimes you need to give yourself that excuse of why. Dude, I'm sorry, my phone overheated. That's why that thing suddenly shut down. So, here's what happens. You're going to eat it, right? Every once in a while, stuff goes sideways, and it's not the end of the world. And I think none of us are perfect. I think this is a generation that really appreciates that. You know, we're all making art at the end of the world is kind of the feeling right now. Mm-hmm. And, you know, give yourself that break if you're trying something different. I grew up in an era we all had to wear iZods, right? So that is not this generation. This generation, you can do whatever the fuck you want to do. And, you know, it's definitely much more diversified and more accepting in a lot of areas. Except for this one, except for like the whole sober thing is not as, if you are, you know, kind of trying to walk that straight line. So, I would just recommend trying to figure out what you still really love to do and then see if you can do it without drugs and alcohol and see if you can find a buddy to do it with you. Is really what we're all trying to figure out.
Yeah. I'm so curious from your sense, right? Like what still makes sobriety so taboo? Cause I had the thought, you're so right. Like Generation Z, they're so much more accepting and fluid when it comes to identity and gender and, you know, personality and creative expression, even fashion, right? Like they're really pushing the boundaries on a lot of stuff, which is wonderful. But sobriety is still not cool, right? I mean, it's getting there, but it still is like a taboo topic. What do you think that's about?
So you can Google how much money is spent on alcohol advertising. Globally is $6 billion. Nationally, it's $2 billion. So there's $2 billion saying party means, you know, alcohol. And there's no money going into, you know, fun means fun, and you can do it sober. So I do still think it is a mindset. When you say the word party, people think alcohol, right? Somehow party has captured that word. And you and I know, you can have fun sober. And you can still do really 100% of the stuff that I used to do, right? Concerts, music, sports. You know, you're still allowed to go out and just do whatever you want and just do it sober, right? And just what we've learned is it just kind of helps to have a sober wingman. So how do you find that sober wingman? Maybe you have to be it to be able to kind of attract it. And, you know, maybe it's called taking a Tuesday night off, you know, or a Friday night off. And, you know, figure out, is there a sober bowling league or something, or some type of league you also want to join and see if you can do it without the alcohol and drugs. Great.
Well, so as we're wrapping up here, can you let people know how they might find you online, how they might get involved?
Sure. Once again, Mark, thanks for the invite for this. I greatly appreciate it, and so appreciate your support early on, and really proud of you for this amazing website and career stuff you got going on. So, but Sober AF Entertainment, our website is soberafe.com. And then you can find us on Instagram, Facebook, and TikTok at Sober AF Entertainment. So we're out there creating a secondary culture at music festivals, concerts, and sporting events. And you are all welcome to join us under this tent for a sober section. So we're able to pull off 2,000 people at a Rockies game. We had 1,500 sober people at an event in Miami for the Dolphins last December. So really excited about what's happening in the future. There's a great need for some type of community support for people who do want to take a night off. So that's what we're really excited about. And have patience with us. We're not quite sure exactly what we're doing yet, but we are making it as fun and as kind of a sacred space to make a sober buddy as we can.
Great. Well, thank you so much for being on the show. It's an honor to interview you. Hope that the word gets out through these vehicles. If you're listening, please share this with somebody who is, you know, new in sobriety or who wants to have sober fun. Give us a 5-star review on iTunes. It really helps this podcast. We're starting to build up a fair amount right now. So thank you so much for tuning in, and I'll see you next week on another episode of From the Ashes.
Thank you for joining host Mark Azoulay on From the Ashes. Be sure to tune in again live next Friday at 2 p.m. Eastern Time and 11 a.m. Pacific Time on the Voice America Empowerment Channel, or subscribe on your favorite podcast platform. Meet triumph and defeat and treat those two imposters the same.